Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze Marcelo's tactical impact and Zinedine Zidane's 3-4-3 following Real Madrid's 2-0 win over Getafe. So when we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have Real Madrid in a 3-4-3 and Getafe starting the game in a 4-4-2. So first we're going to break down how Zidane looked to have his 3-4-3 operating, and then focus on how Marcelo played a key role from left wing back. So first, we'll start at the back, and you have Mendy and Nacho alongside Varane in that back three. And Mendy and Nacho were tasked with covering the channels for Marvin Park and Marcelo, who pushed forward higher up the pitch. In that midfield zone, you had Arambari and Maximovic stepping towards Casemiro and Modric, while Marvin Park and Marcelo pushed into advanced positions on the touchline. That means that Benzema would be occupied by the two center backs, and Vinicius and Asensio would initially start ahead of the fullbacks in Suarez and Oliveira. In terms of Getafe's pressing, you did see Angel and Cucho stepping towards Varane and Mendy, and then Cucurella would push forward to close down Nacho. That means that Oliveira has to shift across to close down Marvin Park, and that gave Asensio more onus to shift into central positions. Like I said, Arambari and Maximovic would step into the path of Casemiro and Modric, and then you have Marcelo, who can push higher up the pitch beyond Portillo, while Vinicius would start ahead of Suarez. But what we often saw from Madrid was that they were flexible in terms of how they were shaped, because what we did see was Modric dropping off deeper to receive the ball to pull out Maximovic. Casemiro was making forward runs beyond Portillo and Arambari into that midfield gap to break into the final third. Marvin Park was pushed higher up the pitch, so like I said, Oliveira would have to shift across. And then you would see Asensio shifting centrally ahead of Chakla, but at times he was drifting laterally and making runs across Kabako into the left channel. Over on the left-hand side, Marcelo was initially holding the left touchline, and that meant that Vinicius would shift narrow. But when Vinicius wanted to receive the ball on the touchline to drag out Suarez, you would see Marcelo shifting laterally into a central position ahead of Portillo, and that creates the avenue for Vinicius to receive the ball. And it also ensures that now Marcelo is in the left central midfield position. If you focus on that midfield zone, with Casemiro operating as the runner and Modric in a deeper position, Madrid lack a link between midfield and attack, and that's where Marcelo's creativity was useful, whereas Mendy was protecting space behind him. And then you could also see an overload down that left side, because if Mendy looks to push forward with the ball, it pulls out Portillo, and it creates a 3v2 overload with Vinicius, Marcelo, and Mendy ahead of Portillo and Suarez. There were times where we saw Marcelo in the gaps between Portillo and Arambari. If Marcelo wants to shift wide towards the touchline, that creates an overload now, because if Vinicius pulls out Suarez, then you would see Benzema or Asensio making runs into the left channel. But Kabako did a very good job of tracking that movement to ensure that Madrid couldn't break from those moves. And if Marcelo looked to shift into those central positions, there were times where you could see Benzema and Vinicius swapping positions. Here we can see an example of Real Madrid shifting to a 3-2-5, with Casemiro pushing beyond the Arambari-Portillo gap into the final third, and you have Marcelo in between Arambari and Maximovic. Benzema shifted over to the left touchline, and Vinicius and Asensio are occupying the two center backs. This is an example of Real Madrid shifting to a 3-1-2-4, with Modric between the Getafe forwards, Marcelo between the midfield duo, while once again you could see Casemiro positioned between Arambari and Portillo, with Benzema once again shifted to the left touchline, and Vinicius in his initial position ahead of Suarez. And if Modric doesn't drop deeper in search of possession, then you'll see him and Casemiro occupied by Arambari and Maximovic, and here you have Marcelo shifting central to pull out Portillo, and that creates a passing lane for Real Madrid to get the ball quickly into Vinicius' feet. Ultimately, the key player in this game was Marcelo due to his positional flexibility, and Getafe simply struggled to pick up his movement as he was able to get into key positions to combine with his teammates and place them into good attacking zones. Here you could see Vinicius dropping the ball off to Benzema, who shifted to the left channel ahead of Suarez and Portillo, while Marcelo begins to make a forward run across Arambari towards left half space. space. Vinicius slides the ball around Portillo into Marcelo's feet to pull Suarez and Arambari towards the ball, and that's where Vinicius begins to make a run off the Getafe wide player. Marcelo does well here to split Arambari and Suarez to play in Vinicius' run off Portillo, and here you can see Vinicius receiving Marcelo's pass with Asensio making a run across Chocolate at the front post, and Casemiro unmarked at the edge of the box, but Vinicius overhits his delivery towards the back post. We could look to a time where Modric received Cucho's clearance from his own corner, and that's when Portillo steps towards the ball to apply pressure, and Marcelo begins to make a run across Arambari. Modric slides the ball around Portillo for Marcelo's run across Arambari and Cucho to place his Real Madrid teammate into left half space, but when Marcelo receives the ball in left half space towards the byline, his pullback places Varane in a legitimate goal-scoring position, but the center back fires a first-time effort off Vinicius and out for a goal kick. The build-up to Real Madrid's best chance of the first half stems from a Getafe systemic breakdown, as Varane slides the ball around Cucurella for Marvin, which pulls out Oliveira. This is where you see Maximovic tracking Casemiro, while Modric and Marcelo are unmarked over on the left side. What happens next is Marvin plays the ball behind Casemiro, but it enables the Real Madrid midfielder to let the ball roll across his body, and that evades Maximovic pressure, and focus on the left-hand side where you could see a 3v1 ahead of Suarez, and Modric is beyond Portillo. The issue that Getafe encounter here is that there's no flexibility in their pressing, because although they are outnumbered 3v2 towards the front, Cucurella should be sticking towards Marvin here, while the two strikers close down Varane and Nacho. That allows Oliveira to stick on Asensio, Suarez to focus on Marcelo, and then you have the two center backs who will be occupied by Vinicius and Benzema. Because what happens next is Casemiro turns to play a diagonal ball out to an unmarked Vinicius, peeling off Suarez's shoulder as Benzema's movement drags the left back central, and then you still have Marcelo free in the left channel. Because the key to this move here is Vinicius letting the ball run out to Marcelo as he pushes forward into the box to occupy Suarez, and Benzema breaks into the box ahead of Kabako as Modric makes an unmarked run towards the box. As you can see here, Marcelo squares the ball to Modric at the edge of the Getafe penalty area, where he receives time and space to fire a low effort on goal that Soria pushes away. So as you can see, Marcelo's movement was really key here, because if he shifts to the touchline, he pulls out Portillo, and that creates a larger gap for Casemiro to burst into. If he drifts central, then he pulls Portillo narrow, and then that creates a gap for Mendy to shift the ball out to Vinicius to leave him in a 1v1 with Suarez. And if you have Mendy pushing forward to pull out Portillo, then that creates another gap for Marcelo to push forward beyond Arambari to break into attacking positions in left half space. Initially, we see Benzema deflecting Suarez's clearance into the path of Mendy, who nods the ball to an unmarked Marcelo in a central position, and Marcelo slides a first-time reverse fizz ball across Oliveira for Casemiro in right half space. When Casemiro receives Marcelo's pass in that zone, he's in a 1v1 with Oliveira, but he fails to bypass the left back and is forced to settle for a corner. While Marcelo didn't create Benzema's opener, he was still involved in the build-up as Mendy slid the ball square to Marcelo ahead of the Getafe midfield duo, while Casemiro began to shift laterally across Kubo. That's where we see Marcelo splitting Maximovic and Arambari for Casemiro ahead of Kubo, and he was able to shift the ball over to the right-hand side, which led to Vinicius creating Benzema's opener. In the build-up to Madrid's second goal, you're able to witness the left-sided overload that Marcelo is able to exploit. It stems with Mendy dribbling across Kubo into Getafe's third, where he has Marcelo unmarked on the touchline, Casemiro dragging Suarez deeper, and Arribas to the right of Kabako, while Maximovic begins to shift away from Modric to try and close down Mendy. Mendy ends up playing a forward pass beyond Suarez into Arribas' feet as he drops off Kabako, and the Madrid youngster instantly slides the ball to the unmarked Marcelo down the left channel, and what you could see here is Mendy making a run beyond Maximovic towards the box. When Marcelo receives the ball in the left channel, the issue that Getafe encounters involves Mendy and Arribas making runs beyond Maximovic towards the box. At this point, Arambari has to shift across for cover, or Kabako has to hold his position opposed to stepping to Marcelo. And the reason being is that you have Benzema and Vinicius making runs towards the back post, occupying Oliveira and Chakla. But Kabako shifts across to apply pressure on the ball, and Maksimovic makes an attempt to cover the front post, thus leaving Arribas and Mendy free to make runs towards the 6-yard box beyond Arambari, and at this point Kabako and Maksimovic have to block Marcelo's delivery. But Marcelo's delivery bypasses the recovering Getafe players and Arribas for a Mendy tap-in. Hi everybody, thanks for watching and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.